My name is Miles. I live in a modest apartment on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. Nothing remarkable about it. A bedroom with creaky floorboards, a fridge that hums a little too loudly, and a view of an ordinary parking lot. I'm a freelance developer, mostly building websites for small businesses. It covers the bills, keeps me fed, and lets me work in sweatpants most days. No glamour, but it's my life. I've always been content with the simple things. No grand ambitions, no dazzling dreams to chase. Just me, my laptop, and the quiet. That's how it's been for a while now. After my last girlfriend left, she accused me of being too comfortable with solitude. I guess I leaned into that. I don't go out much. Weekends boil down to a pizza, a cold beer, and a few hours lost in a video game. I have friends, sure, but most are wrapped up in their own worlds. Except for Finn. He's been my best friend since college, the kind of guy who'd show up at 2 in the morning to help you move a couch. We don't hang out as much since he landed a job in the city, but we still swap dumb memes and catch up when he swings by. That evening, I was sprawled on my couch, polishing off the last slice of a pizza that had been sitting in its box since morning. The sun was dipping low, casting a soft orange glow through the room, the kind you only get in fall. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, knocking against an empty can. I glanced at the screen. An unknown number. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something nudged me to pick up. "Hello?" I said, wiping sauce from my fingers. "Miles, it's Clara, Finn's mom." Her voice was warm, but strained, like she was holding it together. I sat up straight. I hadn't spoken to Mrs. Clara in ages, maybe not since college, when I'd crash at their place after late-night study sessions. "Hey, Mrs. Clara, everything okay?" I asked, already feeling uneasy. She let out a small laugh, more nervous than amused. "Not really. There's a noise in the basement. I think it's a stray cat stuck down there. Finn mentioned you know a bit about animals. Something about a kitten you rescued once." I blinked, trying to recall when I'd told Finn that story. It was true. I'd found a kitten tangled in a fence as a kid, and spent an hour untangling it. But that was years ago. Yeah, I suppose. "You sure it's a cat?" "Pretty sure. It's been meowing for hours. I was going to call animal services, but they can't come until tomorrow." "I don't know. It sounds terrified." Her voice softened on that last word, and something twisted in my chest. I hesitated. It was already dark outside, and I wasn't the hero type. My plans for the night were finishing the pizza and firing up a new game. But this was Finn's mom asking for help, and Finn had pulled me out of plenty of jams over the years. I owed her that much. "Okay," I said. "I'm on my way. Give me 20 minutes. "Thank you, Miles." "Really?" She sounded relieved, and I could swear I heard her smile through the phone. I hung up, tossed the pizza box aside, and rummaged through my closet for a flashlight and work gloves. I grabbed an old cardboard carrier from under the bed, dusted it off, and headed out. The drive to Clara's house, Mrs. Clara's house, wasn't far. Their place nestled in a quiet residential neighborhood, with neat lawns and porch lights twinkling like fireflies at dusk. I'd been there 100 times, but tonight felt different, knowing Finn wasn't around. I parked, gathered my gear, and walked up the driveway to the front door. The air smelled of damp leaves and chimney smoke. Before I could knock, the door swung open. Mrs. Clara stood on the threshold in a loose gray sweatshirt and jeans, her brown hair tied in a messy bun. A smudge of flour dusted her cheek, like she'd been baking. Our eyes met, and she flashed a tired smile. "Miles," she said, "you're a lifesaver. Come on in." She turned, gesturing me inside, and I followed her through the house to the basement door. A faint, high-pitched meow drifted up from below, desperate and raw. I flicked on the flashlight, my heart picking up speed. That sound, and the way she looked at me, made it feel like more than just a cat. The basement reeked of damp concrete and musty cardboard. It was pitch black, the kind that swallows light, and the single bulb hanging from the ceiling did little to help. Mrs. Clara descended the creaky wooden stairs, her steps light but determined. I followed, gripping the flashlight, its beam slicing through the shadows. The meowing grew louder now, erratic and piercing, coming from a far corner. It wasn't just noise, it was a plea, like a scared little thing begging to be found. "Over there," Mrs. Clara said, pointing to a stack of boxes piled against the back wall. Her voice was steady, but her hands fidgeted with the hem of her sweatshirt. She handed me a folded towel from a nearby laundry basket. "In case you need to wrap it." I nodded, crouching to scan the floor. The flashlight beam caught a glint, two tiny eyes, reflecting the light, wide and wild. There it was, a gray cat, fur-matted, huddled behind a tangle of old extension cords. It was wedged between a rusty toolbox and the wall, its body trembling. One of the cords had looped around its hind leg, not tight enough to injure, but enough to hold it fast. Every twitch pulled at it, drawing a pitiful meow. "Poor thing," I muttered, setting down the carrier. I slipped on the gloves more to steady my hands than anything. I wasn't nervous, not exactly, but being down here with her just a few feet away, watching tightened my chest more than it should have. "Be careful," Mrs. Clara said, her voice softer. "It looks scared to death." "Yeah, I see that." I kept my tone low, almost a whisper, like I was soothing the cat and myself at once. I inched closer, centimeter by centimeter, not rushing it. The cat hissed, ears flat, but it didn't lunge. "Hey, buddy," I said, locking eyes with it. "We're gonna get you out of there." It took a good 20 minutes. I had to shift the toolbox inch by inch to reach the cords. The cat swiped at me once, claws snagging my glove, leaving a faint mark on the leather. I didn't flinch. Mrs. Clara stayed quiet, her light steady, but I felt her gaze, her breath catching with every feline twitch. Finally, I slid my hand under the cord and lifted it free. The cat froze, then bolted forward. But I was ready. I scooped it up in the towel, wrapping it gently but firmly, like cradling a baby. It struggled for a moment, then went still, its heart pounding against my palms. "Got it," I said, exhaling. I stood, holding the bundled cat, and turned to Mrs. Clara. Her face had relaxed, eyes wide with relief, maybe even a touch of awe. "You're good at this," she said, straightening up. "I'd have panicked and made it worse." "Nah," I replied, shrugging. "Just takes patience." I carried the cat upstairs, Mrs. Clara close behind. We made our way to the back door off the kitchen, where the night air was crisp and sharp. I set the towel on the grass, unfolded it, and the cat darted into the shadows, its gray tail vanishing behind the fence. For a moment, we just stood there, staring into the yard, silence wrapping around us. "Come in," she said, breaking the quiet. "You've earned a drink." I followed her to the kitchen. The house smelled of cinnamon and vanilla, probably from whatever she'd baked. She pulled a pitcher of ginger-infused water from the fridge and poured me a glass, ice clinking softly. "I was going to call animal services," she said, leaning against the counter. "But they said tomorrow at earliest. I couldn't leave it down there." "I get it," I said, taking a sip. The ginger bit sharp, warming my throat. It sounded desperate. She nodded, her gaze drifting to the window. "I know what that's like," she murmured, barely audible. Then she shook it off, smiled, and waved it away. "Anyway, thank you, Miles. Truly, no problem." I should have left then. It was late, and Finn wasn't even home. But she nodded toward the porch steps outside, where two chairs sat under a string of twinkling fairy lights. "Want to sit for a bit?" she asked. "It's nice out." I hesitated, keys weighing heavy in my pocket, but something in her, maybe that smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, or the way she gripped her glass like an anchor, made me nod. "Sure." We settled on the porch, the night air cool against my skin. The neighborhood was peaceful, just crickets chirping and the distant hum of a car. She talked about her freelance editing work, those all-nighters wrestling with a manuscript that drove her nuts. "Lately, it's just me and the deadlines," she said lightly, but with a heavier undertone. "Finn's hardly around. He's got his own life now." "Yeah," I replied. "He's always been good at moving forward." I paused, then added, "Me? I'm the opposite. I stay put." She tilted her head, studying me. "There's something solid in that," she said. "You're the kind of person who shows up when someone needs you." I didn't know what to say. My heart did a strange flip, and I took a sip of ginger water to cover it. We talked longer than I planned, about small things. The weather, the corner bakery, how Portland shifts in fall. But it was more than chatter. It felt like she saw me, really saw me in a way I wasn't used to. When I finally stood to go, the fairy lights bathed her face in a gentle glow. "Come back anytime, Miles," she said, her voice calm but sure, "not just for stray cats." I smiled, throat tight. "I'll remember that, Mrs. Clara." On the drive home, the dark, empty road stretched ahead, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Not big, not loud, just a crack in the routine, letting in a sliver of light. The days after tasted different, like the air hung heavier. I slipped back into my routine, coding for clients, answering emails, eating cereal straight from the box. But my thoughts kept drifting to that evening on Clara's porch. Her voice, soft but weighted, clung to me. The way she'd called me solid, like it was something rare. I wasn't used to being seen that way. Most people, myself included, just saw me as Miles, the guy who keeps his head down and gets the job done. But she'd spotted something else, and it made me want to see her again. I started finding excuses to drop by Finn's place. At first, they were legit. Picking up a charger he'd borrowed, dropping off a game controller he'd left at my apartment. But Finn was rarely there, always tied up with work or his girlfriend in the city. Clara, though she was home, and every time I knocked, she'd open the door with that half smile, like she'd been expecting me. "Miles," she'd say, warm as ever. "Come on in." The first time was a week after the cat incident. I'd texted Finn to hang out, but he was stuck at the office. I swung by anyway, figuring I'd wait. Clara answered, dish towel over her shoulder, the scent of garlic and tomatoes wafting from the kitchen. "Finn's not here," she said, "but I'm making spaghetti. I always make too much. Want to help with the leftovers?" I should have said no. Made up something about work. But I followed her inside, sat at the kitchen counter, and watched her stir the sauce. The kitchen was cozy, all warm light and wooden cabinets, a world away from my bare apartment. She piled a plate high with pasta for me, and we ate together, talking about everything and nothing. She asked about my coding projects, laughed when I admitted spending an hour debugging a typo. I quizzed her on her editing, and she told me about a romance novel she was working on, rolling her eyes at the sappy dialogue. "They always make it sound so easy," she said. "Love isn't like that." "Yeah," I replied, twirling spaghetti on my fork. "It's messy, complicated." I didn't look at her as I said it, but I felt her eyes on me, weighing the words. After that, I kept finding excuses to stop by. One day, she asked for help clearing out a storage closet in the garage. It was overflowing with old books and photo albums, dusty relics from another life. We worked side by side, her handing me boxes, me stacking them against the wall. At one point, she pulled out a faded photo of herself younger, standing on a beach with a man I didn't recognize. "That was my ex-husband," she said flatly. Before it all fell apart, I didn't know what to say. "Sorry," I mumbled, setting down a box. She shook her head, tucking the photo away. "Don't be. It taught me what I didn't want anymore." She paused, then met my eyes. "You been through that?" I thought of my ex, packing her bags without a backward glance. "Yeah," I said. "Not married, but I thought it was real. Turns out, I was just convenient." Her eyes softened. "You're worth more than that, Miles." The words hit harder than they should have, and I looked away, pretending to adjust a box. Another time, she needed help fixing a leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. I'm no plumber, but I muddled through mostly to not let her down. Water sprayed everywhere when I turned the valve too fast, soaking my shirt. She laughed a real laugh that crinkled her eyes. "You're a mess," she said, tossing me a towel. I caught it with a grin, and for a second, we were just two people, not Finn's friend and Finn's mom. Every visit ended the same. She'd offer something, a bowl of soup, a slice of cake, a glass of iced tea, and we'd sit on the porch or at the kitchen table, talking longer than we meant to. She told me how she'd raised Finn alone after the divorce, learning to fix her own pipes and change her own tires because she had to. I shared about dropping out of school, that gnawing sense of failure until I started coding. "You're good at starting over," she said one day, voice low. "Not everyone can do that." I didn't reply. I just sipped my tea, my fingers brushing hers as I handed back the glass. Neither of us pulled away right away, and the air thickened like we both felt something growing, but neither dared name it. I started texting her directly small things at first. Need anything from the store? Or, fix that bug in my code. Thought you'd like it. She'd reply with an emoji or a quick, "You're too kind." Once, I dropped by without texting Finn, claiming I was in the neighborhood. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Instead, she handed me a slice of warm apple pie. "Made too much," she said, but her eyes said otherwise. By month's end, I wasn't coming for Finn. I was there for her, and I think she knew it. The last time I stopped by, we were back on the porch, fairy lights twinkling overhead. The crickets sang louder, the air cooler. She looked at me, hands wrapped around a mug. "You don't need excuses to come over, Miles," she said softly but directly. "You're welcome here, just as you are." My throat tightened. I nodded, speechless. The night stretched on, and I stayed longer than I should have, the space between us shrinking with every word. When I finally left, her hand grazed mine as she handed me my jacket. It wasn't an accident, and as I walked to my car, cool air nipping at my skin, I knew I'd be back. Not for a faucet or a closet, but for her. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of quiet that makes every sound stand out. The fridge's hum, the neighbor's dog barking in the distance. I was at home, scrolling through code on my laptop, when my phone lit up with a text from Clara. "That cat's back. It's in the backyard, and I think it's hurt. Can you come?" My heart leaped, not just for the cat, but because it was her asking. I didn't even reply. I grabbed my keys, the flashlight, and that same old carrier from under the bed. The drive to her place felt shorter, streets dark and slick with a light drizzle. When I pulled up, the porch light glowed, casting a soft halo over the wet grass. Clara waited at the back door, her silhouette framed by the kitchen light. She wore an oversized sweater, her hair loose for once, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. "Miles," she said, voice tight with worry. "It's that gray cat. I heard it whimpering outside. I followed her to the yard, where the air smelled of rain and pine. The meow was faint but sharp, coming from the corner by the fence. My flashlight caught it, a small gray shape, limping, its left front paw twisted oddly. The same cat from the basement, fur still matted but soaked now, eyes bulging with pain. It hissed as I approached, but it didn't run. It couldn't. "We need to get it to a vet," I said, kneeling in the damp grass. "It's not moving right." Clara nodded, already fetching a cardboard box from the garage. I called the emergency vet. They're open till midnight. Her hands shook slightly as she set it down, and I saw how exhausted she looked, like the day's weight still pressed on her. I approached slowly, talking low, like before. "Easy, buddy. We've done this dance already." It swiped at me, claws raking my wrist, but I held steady. I slid the towel underneath, wincing at its yowl, and lifted it gently into the box. Clara held the flaps closed, her fingers brushing mine as she sealed it. Our eyes met for a beat, and something unspoken passed between us. Worry, yes, but a deep trust, too. We drove to the vet in her car, a beat-up Subaru that smelled of coffee and books. The cat meowed the whole way, each cry twisting my gut. Clara gripped the wheel, knuckles white. "I don't know why it keeps coming back," she murmured. "It could go anywhere. Maybe it knows you're a safe haven," I said, glancing at her. She didn't answer, but her lips pressed together, like she was holding back. At the vet, we waited while they examined it. A sprained paw, nothing broken, but it needed a splint and rest. We sat in the harsh fluorescent waiting room, the clock ticking past 11. Clara leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You didn't have to come," she said. "It's late." "I wanted to," I replied, and it was true. Not just for the cat, for her. For the way she looked at me, like I was more than Finn's friend. When we got back to her place, it was nearly midnight. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and clean. She insisted I come in, pulling 2 mugs from the cabinet and warming milk for hot chocolate. "You're soaked," she said, handing me a towel. I hadn't even noticed my shirt clinging to my shoulders. We ended up on the back steps, mugs in hand, the yard quiet except for the drip from the eaves. The chocolate was sweet, warming my hands, but it was her nearness that held me there. She'd sat close, our knees nearly touching. "I don't know why this cat keeps showing up," she said, staring into her mug. "It's like it's trying to tell me something." Maybe it's not the cat, I said softly. Maybe it's the people who show up for it. She turned to me, eyes searching mine. The fairy lights above cast gentle shadows on her face, highlighting the lines around her eyes, the ones from battles fought and won. Miles, she whispered, I used to think I'd outgrown the part where someone might need me. Not like that. I swallowed hard, throat tight. It's not about age, I said. It's what you make people feel. You make things feel solid, safe. She said nothing for a long stretch. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, full of words we weren't ready to release. I wanted to take her hand, close the gap between us, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, we sat there, the night folding around us like a blanket. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, steady. You're different, you know. You always show up. So do you, I said. She smiled, a small, real smile, and leaned her shoulder against mine, just for a second. It was enough. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door, her hand grazing my arm as she returned the flashlight. Thank you, she said, and it meant more than the cat. I drove home in the dark, the empty road ahead, my heart pounding. Whatever this was, it wasn't casual anymore. It was real, and it scared me as much as it made me feel alive. The days after that night, on the back steps, felt like walking a tightrope. I kept going to Clara's, not always with an excuse. It wasn't about fixing faucets or shifting boxes anymore. It was about being there, sitting across from her at the kitchen table, sharing a bowl of popcorn while she read aloud from the novel she was editing. We'd laugh at the over-the-top romantic lines, but sometimes our eyes would meet, and the air would shift, like we were circling something bigger, neither ready to name it. I'd bring a book I'd finished, and she'd lend me one from her shelf, dog-eared paperbacks with notes in the margins. We'd listen to old vinyls on her antique turntable, the needles crackle filling the quiet. Once, she played a Joni Mitchell album, tapping the rhythm on her mug with her fingertips. This was the soundtrack of my 20s, she said softly. I didn't say it out loud, but I thought, you're still that person. I see her. Finn stayed in the background, or so I told myself. I'd text him to hang out, but half the time, I was already at his place on the porch with his mom. It felt wrong hiding it from him, but what was there to say? We weren't dating. We weren't anything official. We were just us. Two people finding ways to lighten each other's load. Then, one Saturday, it all cracked open. I was in Clara's yard, helping her water the flower beds she'd revived. The sun was setting, gilding the grass. She knelt pulling weeds, hands dirty, when Finn's car pulled into the driveway. I didn't hear it until he was at the gate. Backpack slung over his shoulder, eyes narrowing as he spotted us. Miles, he said, voice sharp with surprise. What are you doing here? I froze, hose dripping in my hand. Clara stood, brushing off her jeans, face calm but eyes flickering. He's just lending a hand, she said steadily. The garden's a mess. Finn looked between us, brow furrowed. You didn't tell me you were coming by, he shot at me, more than her. You just show up now? Yeah, I said, throat dry. I was in the area. Thought I'd stop. It sounded lame, even to me. Finn didn't push, but his expression stayed guarded. He nodded, muttered about needing a shower, and went inside. The air grew thick after he left, like we'd been caught, even though we'd done nothing wrong. That night, I didn't go back. I stayed in my apartment, staring at my blank phone screen. Around 10, a text from Clara. The cat came by again. I left food out. If you're not busy tomorrow, my heart squeezed. I wanted to go, but Finn's face haunted me. I typed, I'll try. And that was it. The next evening, I went anyway. The cat was there, nibbling from a bowl of kibble by the back door. Clara waited inside, hair loose, iced tea in hand. She didn't say much at first, just handed me a small bag of cat food. For next time, she said. Her voice was low, but her eyes held mine, like she was begging me to stay without words. We sat on the couch, the cat curled up outside. Finn senses something's off, I said finally, voice quiet. He didn't say it, but I saw it on his face. She nodded, her finger tracing the rim of her glass. I know. I saw it too. She paused, then looked at me. We haven't done anything wrong, Miles. But we're not just that anymore. I swallowed, heart racing. So what are we then? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she set down her glass and leaned back into the couch, gaze distant. Two people who make each other feel less alone, she said at last. That's enough for now. I nodded, the words sinking deep. When I left, she walked me to the door, her hand brushing mine as she handed over the cat food bag. Come back, she whispered. When you're ready. I drove home under a starry sky, the road silent. We hadn't named what bound us, but it had changed us both. I wasn't just Finn's friend anymore, and she wasn't just his mom. We were two souls learning to carry each other's quiet gently, shielding it from the world. And for now, that was everything. In the darkest corners of our lives, where loneliness creeps in like a stubborn shadow, there's often a simple, profound lesson that human connection springs from the humblest acts, the ones we give without expecting anything back. Take Miles's story, this ordinary young man tucked away in his Portland apartment, where nights blur into the hum of a fridge and the glow of a screen. He's no broad-shouldered hero, just a quiet soul who hears the mew of a stray cat, a faint call from the black of a basement. In helping Clara, his childhood friend's mother, he doesn't just rescue a frightened creature. He sparks something in the emptiness they both carry. Clara, a widow raising her son alone, shoulders the years like a worn coat, learning to mend not just leaky faucets, but the leaks in her heart. And Miles, scarred by a lost love that left him convenient in others' eyes, finds in her a kind mirror. You're worth more than that. This modern fable reminds us that life isn't a frantic dash toward grand dreams, but a path paved with patience and presence. In the crackle of a Joni Mitchell vinyl, beneath the glow of autumn porch lights, or beside a wounded animal, we learn that solitude isn't a lifelong sentence. It's an invitation to reach out, to let light slip through the cracks in our routines. Because what truly heals isn't the absence of pain, but the knowledge that we're no longer carrying it alone. Miles and Clara don't name their bond not yet, but they live it. Two souls making each other less alone, learning to cherish vulnerability like fragile treasure. And you, dear listener, in what basement of your own life are you waiting for a saving hand? What unexpected connection might crack your armor? If this story touched you deeply, as it did me, share in the comments, what lesson about loneliness have you drawn from your own life? A moment when a simple, "I'm here" changed everything? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss these soul-warming tales, and hit the bell for a light in your everyday. Together, let's turn our shadows into stories of hope. Thanks for being here, and see you soon for more shared emotions.